Hey boys and girls, this is Mrs. Burnett, and if you are watching this video, it means that you feel like you're more comfortable using counters to help you find the sum of positive and negative numbers. Do make sure before starting on this practice sheet that you have watched both of the Learn Zillion videos, one that deals with adding positive and negative integers using a number line, and one that talks about the color counters. Otherwise, this isn't going to make a whole lot of sense to you. This is just for those of you who felt like you wanted a little bit more guided practice before you started on your own. When you are done with this sheet today, you are going to take a picture of it and send it to me. So if you would put your name at the top of the paper, I would really appreciate that. And that way, when it comes to me in an email, I'll know exactly who it belongs to. And then when I've saved it, it'll make it easier to, if I need to make any comments or send it back to you. To do this activity with colored counters, since you probably don't have any counters at your house, you can use two different color markers. So if you don't have two different colored markers, you need to stop the video now and go find them. I'm going to use red and green to show my support for the Hoyas and to show my support for the Allatoona Bucks. So keeping in the school spirit. But I can tell you that highlighters will work just as well. So whatever you have around, it's good. I like the fat tip markers because I don't have to color in the circle. And some of you may find that if you just have one marker that you will draw, you'll draw your circle open, and that means one thing, and a colored in circle means something else. I'm going to, though, use two different ones because I think it'll be easier for you to see the differences. So what we're going to have is I'm going to let green be the positive numbers, and I am going to let the negative numbers be represented by the red. If you don't have fat markers, it doesn't matter. You can use a crayon, anything that just shows you a difference so that you can recognize the difference in the colors. We're going to start with the first one. Hopefully everybody read the directions, but just in case, because that's always important. A name and following the direction. Find the sum of the numbers. Pay close attention to the signs of each term. When they're referring to each term, that means each number. You can make a number line or draw colored counters to help you determine the correct sum. If you're watching this video, we're going to do it with colored counters. So to represent -4, I'm going to use the red counters. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. And to use the +12, I'm going to use the green. And I'm going to make sure that I count accurately 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And just by looking at this, you can tell my answer is going to have to be a positive number because I have so many more positives than negative. So I'm going to put a plus sign up here because that's going to help me to remember the sign of my integer. And then I'm going to go back to show how I use ordered opposites, okay, positive and a negative to cancel out each other to make a zero pair. So this positive and this negative basically cancel out each other. These cancel out there. If I take a +1 and a -1, add them together, I get 0, so I have nothing. And I have nothing again, and now I've used up all my negatives, and all I am left with are my positives, and I count them out, and I have 8 positive. So my answer to -4 plus 12 is +8, but I'm only going to write the number 8 because since you've been learning about numbers since elementary school, you didn't put a sign in front of that positive number. We just assumed all numbers were positive when we first started learning about numbers. But now we know, because we're 6th graders, that is not the case. So let's look at our second problem. I have -5 plus a negative 13. This is my term. Some of you might be saying, well, why do I have those parentheses? Does that mean I'm supposed to do some multiplication? No, it doesn't, because we know parentheses can be used to represent multiplication. All these are parentheses are for is to represent this is negative 13, so that you don't get confused with adding and the negative sign. It's just been grouped together. Sometimes you'll see it like this, so I want you to be aware this is the same thing, really, as adding this negative 8 down here, but sometimes when we're first starting out, it can get confusing to see a plus and a minus just side by side without the parentheses, but you will see them both ways. If I look at both of these numbers, I see that they're both negative. I'm not going to have any positive numbers, but let's use our counters to show that that's the case. I have, using my red, negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I'm going to do my negative 13 right under it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And I always make sure that I'm counting, my numbers correctly. In this case, I can't do any matching up and making any zero pairs because all of mine are the same color. They're all negative. So my answer automatically has to be negative. When I add these together, this 5 and this 13, I end up with 18. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. It's like adding their absolute values together, 5 and 13, and getting 18. But because they're already negative, if I add more negatives to this 5 that's negative, I'm going to end up at negative 18. All right, let's look at another one that's very similar to that one. Here's my term, negative 12. Here's my other term, negative 8. I'm going to be, the operation I'm doing is adding. I'm going to represent them with counters. 12 negatives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And I've got 8 negatives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I stop right there. And that's kind of a way to kind of keep up with making sure I've got the right numbers. Make sure that you're making your circles all about the same size. They don't have to be perfect, but when you have messy work, it's easy to make mistakes in math. Once again, I do not have any green counters, so all of these are negatives. My answer has to be negative. So if I had looked at this one, if you look for a pattern, this 5, this 13 made 18. Well, this 12 and this 8 are going to make 20. And negative 8 added to negative 12 just becomes more negative. I count these all out. This 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and I have 20 negative counters. And it's always a good idea to circle your answers, especially if you're sending them to me. It's easier for me to check. Okay, we're going to do one last one together, and that's 10 plus negative 16. And now I'm back to having some positives. All right, this is one term. This negative 16 is the other term. We're adding them together. So I've got 10 positives. They're green. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I have 16 red, negative. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And now we can see I'm going to have more negatives. I've got more negative counters. So I'm going to go ahead and put a negative sign up there. Remember, if I have a positive one and a negative one, basically they create a zero pair. We can show that by circling them like this. If I've got a positive one and a negative one, they become zero. So these big circles show you zero, or you can just draw a line through them, maybe because you're not good at drawing ovals, but you're good at drawing a straight line, which tells me I have no more pairs. I have no positives left over to go with these negatives. How many negatives do I have left? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have -6 for my answer. One of the things that we're going to talk about tomorrow is a rule so that we're not always having to use counters or number lines. Maybe you can see a pattern here. Maybe you can see that when I had a negative and a positive, what I actually did is I subtracted one number, the absolute value of one number, from the absolute value of the other number. Even if I have the absolute value of 16 minus the absolute value of 10, so that would be 16 minus 10, I get 6, but because I had more negatives than positives, instead of this being a positive 6, it's a -6. But don't worry about that too much today, because we'll go into a lot more detail tomorrow. But as you work through some of these problems, try to pay attention to that. Am I adding numbers with different signs, or am I adding numbers with the same sign? Because technically, this problem really is -9 plus, basically, +3. This is -6 plus -3. These numbers have the same sign. These numbers have a different sign. These numbers had the same sign. These numbers had the same sign. But these two sets of numbers had different ones. So one of the things that I like about math is there are multiple ways to do that. So some of you are using counters to help you get a visual idea of why your answer is negative, positive. Some of you might be using the number line, but you should look at how different problems are set up the same way. Don't let the parentheses throw you off. All they are there for is to show I'm grouping. This is a -1 and this is a -7 that I'm adding together. So good luck with these today, boys and girls, and please be sure to put your name on them, take a picture of them, send them to me so that I can give you a little bit of feedback in case you're off on the wrong track. Have a good day.